everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my review of Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. So I have so much to say about this. I will do a really quick summary. We are following in this book a character named Bryce who lives in this very urban fantasy type world, and she is half human, half fae. She is a party girl for sure. She loves to party with her friends, go out, do drugs, get drunk. She keeps going like this until a humongous tragedy hits her life, and she is tasked by some pretty high up people to figure out these murders that are occurring in her urban fantasy city. So that is a really quick summary. This book is obviously a lot more nuanced than that, but I really just want to get into my thoughts. So I was trying to figure out how to structure this review because I have so much to say. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some of the negatives I have with this book and work my way up to the positives. Biggest negative about this book is 100% the beginning of it. It is unacceptable to me how much info dumping and exposition there was in the beginning of this book. And I'm talking not just like the first couple pages, it is throughout like the first 100 to 200 pages. You feel like you are about to be quizzed on the history of this world because Sarah J. Maas just dumps every bit of information on you about this world, not in a very organic way, not with our characters figuring it out for themselves. Nope, she just dumps it on you with these chunks and paragraphs of text. So it is really dense in the beginning and very, very hard to get into, but if you hang in there, it does get a lot better. So I would say the second negative thing I have is probably just with some of the quirks of Sarah J. Maas's writing style. And this kind of goes for all of her books for me. Some of the stuff that she writes is just a little bit cheesy. Like the fact that every character in all of her books purr. Like, why do we have to make them purr? Why does every character in every book have to purr? Maybe if just like one character purred in like one situation, that's fine. But we have characters purring like they're little kitties running around. Why? In every book she writes, it's always the purring. I can't stand it. Like I didn't even notice it in her first book that I read, Throne of Glass. But then like after it was in every book, in like every scene, I couldn't take it. So the purring is in full force in this book as well. That does not change. You should go in expecting Sarah J. Maas writing. The next thing that I had a little bit of an issue with the cheese factor was the characters in this world call like aggressive male characters alpha holes instead of assholes, which I found so unbelievably cheesy. I couldn't with some of the like terminology and language and stuff just came off as so cheesy. But I think like the cheesiest thing was the whole made up sport for this world being like sunball. And it's like so obvious that Sarah J. Maas has no idea what this sport looks like or how it's played. She just like wanted to make up a sport that was as popular as like the American football is here in America, and just like looked out the window, saw the sun, and said, okay, I'll make it sunball. So cheesy. I know that's such a little thing, but like there are so many references to sunball, and so many times the characters call each other alpha holes, and like so much purring that like it just adds up. And it does take away from the reading experience in certain scenes because you're just thinking like, ooh, that's so cringy. That's not gonna bother everybody. It just like kind of got to me a little bit. And then the third negative that I have is the world. So at the beginning, you get just dumped on with how this world works, all the creatures in this world. We have fairies, we have angels, we have demons, we have shapeshifters. We not only have shapeshifters, we have shapeshifters of different kinds that shapeshift into wolves, some shapeshift into birds, some shapeshift into snakes. And then we've got mer people, we've got vampires, we've got chimera, we've got sprites. We have every single mythical creature that you have ever read in any fantasy book is packed into this book. And in some ways, that's fun, but in some ways, I didn't like it because it was like overly complex at that point, where it's like if we had waited to meet the mer people until book 2, then that would have been like more fun. But no, you just get like all the things, all the creatures in this first book living in this one city, and it just came off as like kind of like cheesy. I don't know. I almost like wish, like, why couldn't it have just been like demons and angels, or like, I don't know, like the scope was just so big that like, I don't know if it was totally pulled off in the best way it could have been. Like, I wish we were introduced to the creatures in future books. It was like the mer people had these certain abilities that was like, why do they have that ability? Like, why do they have super strength? Like, I don't know if they actually had super strength, but it was stuff like that where it was like, wait, the mer people can do what? Like, why? How? Like, so just some of the things, it was like the world, I wish she had just taken more time with building up the world in a more organic way and not just kind of shoving it all in your face at once. Maybe someone knows what I'm talking about out there, but I don't know. It just didn't totally work for me. So those are kind of the negatives I had with this book, but the positives, I think, totally outweigh the negatives. So let's get into the positives, working my way up to the thing that I think this book did the best. So the plot in this book starts off pretty slow, and I don't think this book needed to be 800 pages long. I think it could have been condensed just a little bit, but the plot in this book, once it gets going, it's really exciting. At the end of the day, it feels like it's a detective mystery kind of novel where you have a ton of twists and turns that are so much fun when they're revealed to you. Sarah J. Maas always does this in her books, where I will think that something's going one way and it will be the totally opposite way, or I will think I have the ending figured out and the bad guy figured out, and it will be something totally different. And I love that about Sarah J. Maas's books in general. I think she does a really good job keeping the reader on their toes, building up tension, and building to an epic climax. I gotta say, she deserves full credit for her plots and her pacing. I think it's really well done. The other thing in this book that I loved were the characters. I can definitely see where Sarah J. Maas has matured a lot in terms of creating characters that are much more believable, much more relatable, much more mature than her past characters, a little less angsty, a little more like fun. I don't know. Bryce as a character was a lot of fun to follow. I love her wit. I loved her and Hunt's relationship, and some of their dialogue had me smiling, had me cracking up. I loved their relationship, and just Bryce as a character was so much fun to read about. Hunt as a character was an awesome contrast to Bryce. I think they balanced each other so well, and their scenes together was just so fun, and you could feel the tension between them. It was so great. So those two characters for me were definitely the standouts, but all of the side characters, Sarah J. Maas does this really well in her other books as well. She always builds up her side characters really well, and you feel like you know how to keep track of every character. Like, some authors kind of just throw in these random side characters and don't develop them whatsoever, so they're kind of just like in the background and you forget about them. Sarah J. Maas doesn't do that. She really makes every character have a purpose and has a personality, and you really feel like you know their story, they're developed. Not everyone's fully developed, but enough characters on the side are developed where you feel invested, and I really appreciate that about her character work, especially in this novel. There were some standout side characters that didn't even have that much page time, but you still loved, and that's really cool. I love that about her books. So really enjoyed the character work in this book. But the best thing about this novel, and why I gave it the rating I did, was the ending. And I've heard this similar sentiment across many readers, where they all hate the beginning but then love the ending, and I have to agree. That ending was so incredible and wild and just full of twists and turns and tears. I shed tears. When an author can make me cry, they did something right. If they built up their characters and immersed me in their world enough to make me feel a physical reaction to what's unfolding on the page, that is incredible. That deserves so much praise. So the fact that she made me cry in this book twice, and you probably know if you've read this book which two scenes I'm talking about. Wow, the ending was incredible. It was like everybody powered up and it was just epic. And I'm not a very visual reader, which is probably why I was like a little disconnected with this world and the creatures, because I just have a hard time visualizing what I'm reading. But I could even like kind of visualize what was happening at the end in my head and was like, all right, I'm digging this. It was really, really good. So that ending totally deserves all the hype. I'm so excited for book 2 now. Wow. So overall, I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. And the whole time, until probably around page 600, I thought I was going to give this book 4 stars because I was having a ton of fun with it. I liked the characters, but I had those issues with it that I talked about at the beginning. Until the ending, it blew me away. So overall, 4.5 stars. I highly recommend this to Sarah J. Maas fans. Obviously, if you like any of her other books, this is classic Sarah J. Maas. You're going to love this. If you liked Throne of Glass, if you liked ACOTAR, you're going to adore Crescent City. On the flip side, if you did not like Throne of Glass, if you did not like A Court of Thorns and Roses, you are not going to like this. This is so similar to her other books and characters and writing style that I don't think she's gonna like win anyone over who didn't like her before with this book, because it's just so much her trademark that like whatever issues you had with those books in the past, I don't think this is going to change your mind. And I could totally be wrong. Like, if you had your mind changed about this author after reading this book, totally let me know. But in my opinion, I don't think that she's going to win you over with this book if you already went in not liking her other books. So totally recommend for fans of urban fantasy. If you haven't read a Sarah J. Maas book before and you like shows like True Blood or like the Sookie Stackhouse series, this was very like reminiscent of that, because the Sookie Stackhouse series also has like a ton of different kinds of creatures in it, and this felt very much like that, like the urban fantasy setting, the characters, the romance, all that. So if you like that, I highly recommend this. Overall, it's just so much fun to read. Loved that ending. Few cringy moments, but you know what? I can overlook it. I still love it. So that is my review of Crescent City, spoiler free. I am going to talk a little bit about spoilers, so if you haven't read this book yet and you want to, go ahead, click off now, because let's get into some spoilers. So, spoilers now. The 2 scenes that had me crying, and please let me know if you agree, were when Lehaba, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Lele, the little sprite, the little flame sprite, when she had her big moment saving Bryce, I cried. Like, her whole death scene just had me shedding all the tears. That was one huge scene that totally won me over with this book. And then the second scene was obviously when Bryce was making the drop and Danica was there. Oh, I still get chills. I still get choked up thinking about it, because that was so beautiful how important their friendship was throughout this entire book. I think not enough books place an emphasis on the value and importance of just really good friends. They always have these romances, and it's always the boyfriend or the husband or whoever being the one to, you know, save them, or being the one that they value most. But throughout this whole book, Bryce really, I love that she never wavered on valuing Danica's friendship with her, and that was what anchored her at the end. I loved that, and I love that message, and I think that more books need more girl friendships that are so strong and powerful and beautiful. I just loved Danica and Bryce. I thought they were amazing. I am shocked that we did not get one sex scene between Bryce and Hunt in this book, especially after reading A Court of Mist and Fury, which, like, can we all just agree that that is a new adult/adult book? I love how they're remarketing all of the A Court of Thorns and Roses books to be adult books because they should have been, which is just more proof that the label young adult is just a marketing tool, because some of those books that get marketed as young adult, they're towing the line for sure, and Court of Thorns and Roses and that whole series is definitely that, but shocked that we didn't get that from this book. But you know what? The second book is coming, and I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited. I loved Hunt. I loved Bryce. The scene where Bryce admits that she has the little, like, jelly jubilee little unicorns was so great. I, like, related to that so much because we all have that, like, inner nerd in us, and that one thing that is, like, our guilty pleasure or, like, little secret, you know. I loved that. I loved that about Bryce. It made her so much more relatable and likable as a character, and that's when I kind of changed my mind on Bryce, you know, going from someone that was, like, fun to follow but I didn't love, to loving her. And the last thing I'll say about spoilers was the only problem I had with the ending was I loved that Bryce powered up the way she did. It's almost like she went, like, Super Saiyan and just, like, blew everyone away. But it almost felt like, where did that come from? Because the whole time she's, like, half human, and we're focusing so much on that human side of her that we don't really ever test the limits of her fae powers. And, like, I loved the twist at the end where she had that light inside of her and was actually more powerful than even Rune, her brother, was. I loved all of that. But it was almost kind of like, where did that come from? Like, it was cool, but, like, it seemed a little ridiculous too. So in ways, it almost felt like it was forced, instead of, like, connecting all these dots that you were like, oh yeah, that's what that foreshadowing was for, da 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 da. I feel like it could have been foreshadowed more, hinted at more, that she was going to have this huge power up at the end. Maybe if I go back and reread it, I'll see more of the hints now that I know how it ends. But first time reading it, I was kind of like, this is cool, but it's also a little ridiculous. But I still loved it. Don't get me wrong, I still loved that ending. So that is a couple of spoiler parts I really wanted to talk about as well in this book. If you've read it, let me know what you think. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I would love to know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And until next time, bye!